I would like to invite Janna Besamusca, University of Utrecht. Where's Rupa Korde? Rupa Korde is our director of operations, but she's also an economist at the Vlaine University. And by the way, she was the brains behind that super scheme for interns, where Sriya was talking about. And it was actually Rupa who said, well, we can invite a hell of a lot of interns as long as interns manage themselves. And that's what we do. So we have management, we have many groups of interns, but they're always managed by interns. And it seems to work brilliant. Well, no, I won't say how we call it. We are very happy with that structure. It keeps our organization highly vivid. There is a lot of fun. So it's cool. So are you there? And is Rupa there too? Rupa?
Yes, I'm here.
You there?
Yes.
Okay, then I suggest you together with Janna. So Niels, can you pin Janna and Rupa together? Because there will be an interaction together. And as they were at the ladies' night in Pune in the cafe, discussing together what is the next step? How do we continue with WageIndicator? Make it fun, but also make it cool and just good as you do. Voila, you have the floor.
Right. Hi, everyone. Let me just start by introducing myself, and as far as Pauline hasn't already done so, but to just give you a bit of a better idea of what I do and what I work with in terms of the WageIndicator data. So I'm an assistant professor at Utrecht University in the Netherlands, and I've been working with the WageIndicator for quite a while. And those of you who were here last week have seen some of the work I do as well. So I'm currently a member of the supervisory board, but I've also, as Pauline said in the beginning, done my PhD working with the WageIndicator wage data. I am currently running 2 projects with the CBA database, so that's the collective bargaining agreement database. And I'm here basically, I think, to have a discussion between 2 data nerds and to really talk to all of you, like, what do we do? What are we as data collectors, and how do we organize that in terms of organization? I'd like to ask Rupa to introduce herself as well, and to also give us one thing in the way you work, or something in a product, but something about the WageIndicator that you would really like to keep going forward. And in the same way, while Rupa answers, I'd like to invite everybody to type your own answers in the chat. So what is one thing about the WageIndicator that you really want to stay the same in the next 20 years? Rupa, go ahead.
I think Pauline covered my introduction quite well. I have a very short introduction. I work at Vlaine University as assistant professor in economics, and I work with WageIndicator as director of operations. My journey with WageIndicator has been a fun one till now. It's been almost 10 years that I'm associated with WageIndicator in different ways. The most fun part was, of course, the PhD, where I got to use WageIndicator data, and not only salary survey, but also the labor law data. And that's where I think I'll talk about more later. I think one thing that should not change at all is, everyone is so approachable. It's like Pauline always says, knock on the door. And literally it's like she's a knock away. And that's not only for Pauline, but I think anyone. And for the past, I think 8-9 months, I've been working closely with the WageIndicator team. And literally everyone is just a knock away. You send them a message and within 15 minutes, there is a reply back. When I don't see that reply, I'm worried that is everything okay or not. But I think that's the informal relationships that we have with the formal work. I think that should not change at all. That's the change I don't want.
Thank you. I think a lot of people agree. I'm looking at the chat and I see Pauline wants to stay naughty. Other people want to stay family, want to work as a family as we do now. support a nice team, being a global team. I see a lot of things going like that. I see Fiona, would you like to explain a little bit what you mean by the flexibility and the openness?
I think the openness really relates to what Rupa just said, that everybody is always approachable, but the flexibility and the innovation, I think, also comes from that. So the whole team is super flexible. If there's an issue here, everybody's like, okay, sure, let's see how we can fix it. Nobody will ever say, that's your problem. So that for me, that is flexible. Everybody is flexible and we try to solve the problem together. And I think within that spirit, there's also innovation, because then maybe somebody else can think about the problem in a nice and innovative way, and then a new cool idea arises. So that's for me the wage indicator.
So that's really about creativity as well, and making sure that even if we grow, we keep that opportunity for everybody to bring in their ideas and to actually have a chance to realize them. And I think that that is a crucial point also as we move forward, because I think Rupa and I, we're going to talk a little bit about data collection and data providers and what kind of data provider WageIndicator is. And then imagine that we started about 23 years ago in one country, and then we added another one, and it was a very big deal to add 2 more. And then slowly, right, that organization started growing, and then we would start with wages, but now we also want minimum wages, and we want the living wages, and we want all these different data collections, and that we become a more and more professional data collector, right? And a data provider, really. And I was wondering, Rupa, if you have any ideas about how we keep that creativity in the team as we grow and as we structure what we do a little bit more.
So each team has its own way of managing data, and I think it's wonderfully done. So like I was saying, for my PhD, we use the salary survey. And again, like I said, everyone's like a message away. And as I would send a message to Kia, and there would be a reply. Whatever I needed was right in my mailbox immediately. So my work would not stop. But I also needed information about labor laws. Now, so I was working on 3 countries: India, Pakistan, and Sri Lanka, the difficult countries of the world. And I also wanted to check how the labor laws have changed over the years. No government website or no research paper, I think, would have given me any information about how this change happened. But Iftika's team had it ready. So they had all this data about labor laws sorted already, and it saved like at least, I think, 3 months of my work. So we have a system in which I think everyone is organizing data, and this is the moment when my dogs decide to go crazy. So Janna, you can answer the question. I'll just come back in a moment. So what do you think about the data collection and management?
I think in terms of data collection, there's some things that, in terms of how to organize that, there's some things I've been wondering about, and that is really about how we organize the teams as well. And again, this is something that I'd also like to kick back to the group to see how you feel about that. But I'm wondering, much in line also with what Shreya was discussing, like how should we organize those teams? Should we have teams mainly really working on one product? So the living wage team and the decent work check team and the labor rights team, and everybody's in one team. But those teams are global. So you could be on a team with some people in Europe, some people in India and Pakistan, then in Africa. Or should we have kind of like more localized teams that can also maybe sometimes meet each other and be together in real life? So what would be more productive for you? And
Yeah,
the reason that, somebody wanted to say something?
I don't know.
No. Okay, go ahead, type it in the chat as well if you want to, or just raise your hand. But this is something that I really wonder, like, how do you feel you could be more inspired? Because I feel like so much of what you're saying here is about working with other people. Like, I don't see anybody say things like, what I really would like to keep in the next 20 years is that I can collect living wage data, right? But I see everybody say, I want to work in the way that we do. I want to work with the people that we do. So how would you like to do that? Would you like to do that globally, but on one task? Or would you like to do multiple tasks, multiple teams, but maybe work in regions or sometimes meet each other. And I think, Rupa, something to think about is how does this work for the process of data collection? Because I think if you purely look at how do we get the most reliable data collection process, we would prefer a structured process, right? We would have structured, well set periods of data collection. So for the living wages, for example, once every quarter, we go in there, we publish in all countries, we do that at the same time, and then 4 times a year, we publish the results of that. So the data collection takes place at the same time across the world. It gets sent to a central location at the same time to do the calculations, and then it gets published. And then it gets decentralized again once we start publishing those wages and talking about impact, seeing what to do with that data. And I'm wondering if that works with the way that we want to set up the teams.
So again, the whole process, I think, is evolving, and I am not really the right person to answer this question. The boss of data is Danny. I think their experience has been that they have been, I have seen Shreya, Danny, Akash working when the data collection part happens, when the delivery is happening. There is a lot of work, and it's crazy. I can tell you it's crazy, and each time I think we are learning more. And maybe Danny, you want to share some insights over here. I mean, this is entirely your area.
Yeah, Danny, please come in.
Yeah, well, I think now we deal more with data than in the past. So that's thanks to the living wages. But in general, I think our databases are more organized. But at the same time, we are also more structured as an organization. So I think one of our strengths is that, yes, everybody say it's very nice to work all together. We all fix the problems and all of that, which is true. But at the same time, I think we are managing to keep the tasks a bit clear and the organization more structured than it used to be. And that is, I think, helping a lot in being able to deliver and to face the crazy work that Rupa was talking about. And I agree, it's really crazy. But I see that everybody knows what they have to do. So that's how we solve things every day.
Thank you, Danny. And I think that's a really good summary. I want to move on to something a little adjacent, unless Rupa wants to take a different direction. But I was wondering, in terms of data collection, we're one of many, right? But we're also very different in terms of what we do. So I was wondering, Rupa, like, what kind of data collector are we? So how are we different from other data collectors?
I think it's updated. Number one, it's always updated. It's always latest data, which is rare to find. Even the top companies who sell data have old data. So I think that's one. Second is reliability. The data is very reliable. That's the second one. All the calculations that we have done so far, it matches the calculations of any, let's say, a small geographic region that someone's doing, and we manage these calculations globally. So I think reliability is the second point. Third is consistency. So it's not that you publish something once and then you never find that kind of information again. Whether it's minimum wage, whether it's living wage, whether it's salary data, there has been consistency in terms of collecting and publishing. Of course, there have been improvements and we are getting better day by day. I can't predict for next 20 years for sure. I can't even predict for next 5 years. So it will keep changing. The world is very dynamic right now. Things will change very quickly. The fourth and the most important thing, I think, is adaptability. We adapt to things very quickly. Moment there is a change, and everything happens in one email or one email trail, or let's say one WhatsApp group, and there's a solution. So adaptability is super quick. I think that's how we are different. But what are your points? You're just asking me.
Yeah, because you're not asking me. Anyway, no, I would give a very different answer, I think.
Yeah.
Not that I disagree with any of what you said, because I think all of them are good points, and when you say them like that, I would agree. But my first thought was that we are the kind of data collector that basically does everything other people say can't be done.
Mm-hmm.
So we're the ones who go into living wages, and then everybody tells you, well, living wages on a continuous basis around the world, it's something that you can't do. You can just, once every 5 years, you do the survey in one region and then you publish it and then it's done. And I feel like we are those enthusiasts and optimists who just basically feel like, well, you know what, we'll just try it. And I feel the same way about the collective bargaining agreement database. It's I think that the special thing about that database is that nobody else has it. There are loads of people who have collective agreement databases for their own country, or for 5 countries ranging from March until November 2004, right? But we're the ones who just kind of like jump in there and try and do it and see if it works. And that brings me back to something that you said about always changing and always trying and adding things. It makes me feel like if we kind of like, well, we're 23 now, right? So we're almost adults. Like, what do we do when we grow up? Like, we have to either stop somewhere, right? And say like, these are the products that we do for the consistency. We do them consistently all the time, but these are the products we can do. Or we have to keep changing, keep doing new stuff. Like, which one would you choose? Or of course, the third option where we just become this massive organization with like 2,000 employees and we keep doing more, but it seems unlikely. So keep changing or not?
That's a difficult question, Janna. So you have to change. I mean, you can't say that I will not change and not adapt. But I agree in terms of adding new products, that you can't have an endless list. And we do have a niche, which is everything related to labor market. So I think we are maintaining that niche. And if something new comes up, so living wages was not an acceptable idea few years back, but now it is the thing. So if something else comes up, and then you can't be stubborn and say that no, I will stick to these products because I have these. You of course keep improving on what you already have, but also see what others are doing.
Is there a specific data product you have in mind that you would like to develop in the next 5 years or so? And the same question to everybody here. Is there something like data we're not providing at the moment that you think we really should?
I think the chat box is open. I can't think of anything right now.
I see FT.
Yes, I can see.
I see Pauline. Yeah, Pauline, go ahead.
Yeah, I think what we do now, having minimum wage is already good and for all countries. Labor law, what we do is pretty good and we extend to all countries. But what is missing, a bit missing between minimum wage, living wage and labor law is a good benchmark for people who are out there in other jobs, like the platform jobs. And we just came up with, the living tariff to show that, I mean, they can't rely on a wage because they don't have a wage. But they also have not an employer, they're not an entrepreneur really. So they need another benchmark. To have that, it's needed. So we start slowly to work on that to get, so Dani and I with Global, we started. Now we try to have that living tariff concept. I think that is something new, what needs to be there for 200 countries.
Well, it's new, but we are already doing it. So it's
yes, of course.
Of course.
Then,
yeah. Thank you, Pauline. I'm also looking at Rob now as chair of the board, and I know that you do a lot, not just with living wages, but also with the SDGs. So is there something that we miss? Something we should add?
No, yes. one of the things that I really think is important is not to focus only on social wages and bargaining relationship, although I think it is, in terms of the bigger issue of sustainable development, really a sort of condensation point. And so all compliments to this, and of course focus on the data gathering and make it reliable, independent, etc. But it is always important to see how that then links up. I call that the nexus effect to other sustainability issues like climate change, gender equality and like. And of course, I know some of the data give us a lot of ideas on how that actually works, but that might be something also for PhD research. So Janna and others are doing research not only on collecting data, but maybe referring to what Martin also in the first stage of this session said, living wage or wages or minimum wages have spillover effects. Or you can also say the other way around, which I would love to see also, not only to prove how important it is to have social justice, equality and the like as part of economic, social, environmental growth, but also that environmental triggering events, conflicts and whatever, will be modified also when people are paid a living wage. You can imagine also what that means in practice. For instance, just as an example, I think that the Ukraine war would have never happened if the Russian people that are now fighting on the side of the Russians, the soldiers, would have been paid a decent wage, because actually they would not have applied to become a part of the military or whatever. Just as maybe a stupid example, but I think this kind of examples would be great to also use the data in various narratives around the world, showing also that, in my view, social justice and equality are a precondition for ecological justice and even peace and all sorts of other forms of justice. That would be, and I almost know for sure that that can be proven, but not as a gold standard, because we never will be, but it can be illustrated how important it is. So that would be something that I think it would be great, a great invitation to everyone that deals with also gathering the data. Link it up to your personal environment, link it up to your personal context, and see whether there are stories to be shared where this kind of say simple data, which of course not simple, has major repercussions for other societal issues. So, and that of course is the SDG agenda, and there are lots of indicators there that we can link up to. And I would challenge everyone to say, use living wage data or minimum wage data or collective bargaining data and link it up to the 230 other indicators of the SDG agenda, because that is the universal agenda that we all adopt. Anyway.
Thank you very much. Yeah. I think that was an excellent contribution. And I know we're running out of time, and I'm just looking at Pauline to see if I have time to just ask, from the very macro perspective to the much more pragmatic perspective, if I can see if one of maybe the web managers would like to just, as a closing statement, maybe say something like, what do your web visitors miss that we currently do? What should we really add in terms of data or information on those web pages? Looking at the web managers like Karen, for example.
Go ahead. You can just take some time. As soon as it becomes boring, we close, but otherwise we can continue. There's also Mariana from Buenos Aires sitting there, and Karen from Cape Town. So they're really far out, huh?
So Mariana and Karen, can you come in and give us your opinion? And I would tell you, Pauline, Rupa and I are never boring. So all of you, you're going to be here for a while.
Don't feel like you need to close. If it's nice, we continue, and then if people want to go, then they can go, and you enjoy just to chat together. There's nothing against that. So Karen or Mariana, come in.
Well, I really liked the point that you made, Janna, about saying if we had a choice between constantly innovating or focusing on a certain amount of activities that we do and focusing on sharpening them and doing them really well. But I also like Rupa's response, saying that you can't move forward without looking at innovation and without change. You can't do the one without the other. So I suppose I don't have a comment to make in terms of saying, I think we should go this way, or I think we should go that way. But I do think that one of the strengths of WageIndicator, and it's coming out in the comments as well, is the fact that there's a kind of collective energy that is focused towards the different projects that we do. So it's not just one person who's looking at data and one person who's looking at social media and one person, and they're sort of silos that are separate from each other. It is all very much interrelated. So I think as innovation happens in one area, it kind of organically spreads over to other areas. So I think it always will be a part of WageIndicator, at the same time as honing and specializing the areas that are, as Iftikhar says as well, pretty unique, and that we are doing the best at the moment. So that would be my comment. It's not a kind of, I think this should happen. It's just more a comment as to what I've been hearing this afternoon.
Thank you, Karen. And I have a more specific question for you, Axia, because I was thinking, I just saw that Pauline put in the chat that one other thing that we should really dig into is compliance. And I know that in South Africa, you've done a lot with domestic workers and also the domestic workers minimum wage. I'm wondering, so do you get these kind of compliance questions that you can't answer? And if you can't answer them, then what do you need from us to make sure that you can?
I think in the field of domestic work, absolutely, compliance is an issue, and we see it because it comes up in our Help Scout questions that we get every month. Sometimes it's from employers who don't quite understand what the rules are and actually do want to comply but don't quite understand. But more often than not, it's from domestic workers, and the level of abuse that is taking place and non-compliance is actually quite shocking. And one does feel a bit helpless in those circumstances. I do in Cape Town, I work quite closely with the South African Domestic Workers Union. So I can refer people and I have a good relationship with them. But I do think that more could be done from the WageIndicator side. Definitely, it's a field that could be looked at. I'm not sure what, one would have to think a little bit more out of the box around it. But yes, it is an issue and something could be done. Something more could be done.
Thank you. And Mariana, would you like to contribute?
Hi.
Yeah, it's Mariana.
I'm from Argentina, Buenos Aires, Argentina, and I have worked at WageIndicator since July 2019, and I collect data for cost of living to many countries in Latin America. This is a hard work and an important work and an important task. It's a very large group in the world, in WageIndicator group. I think my job contribute to great issue to help another data, and well, I do it on websites. It's very enriching to listen to them. I explain one issue. In Argentina, when I live, the cost of living is very, very affected by the inflation. With the governments don't know how to control it. And I think that work like us contribute to help to add information, and this is very, very, very important.
Thank you very much, and I completely agree. I think that you know, these really are the two sides of WageIndicator, right? Like the data collection part, and then that is just nothing without the communication and the sharing of that data. And that is so much in the DNA of the organization. And I see more and more people having to leave. So I think that we should bring this to an end. So I want to give the floor to Rupa for one
last question for you, Janna, maybe.
Go ahead. Yeah.
So, Janna, we already have so much of data and databases. So we have different databases, so much of data in it, and it's nothing less than a gold mine. So how do you organize this for future now? So let's say after 20 years, if somebody has to come back and refer to this data that we have, because I know you've worked closely in coding the salary survey, and you're working on the CBAs right now. So there's no better person to answer this question.
Yeah, thanks. I actually think that is something where we can make real steps. Yeah. So I don't know if Kea is here as well. I'm looking at Martin to kind of like nod and or shake. Yes, I see Kea sitting next to Martin. But Kea and I have actually been involved in the SHOCK project, which is a project funded by the European Commission. And it's really about how to kind of like archive this kind of data. And I think that is something that we should really be thinking about. And we have a couple of standards there for archiving questionnaires, for archiving data, for doing that in an open source way. And so for me, I really think that we should be moving towards certain standards, like in terms of archiving the surveys and the methodology. There are certain standards like DDI lifecycle standards, which is basically just a specific format in which you save the questionnaires and save the data in a way that people later on can say, okay, this is how it's done. This is what I want to use as well. I want to copy this, right? And I think the same, that is going to imply imposing some kind of structure on the publishing of the data we have as well. So it means to put real effort still into professionalizing the way that we document our data, but also versioning. So that means that even though the data collection is continuous and we continuously update on the websites, by the site, maybe there should be certain publications, like the cost of living is published 4 times a year, or the salary survey is published once a year, in terms of just being able to say the 2022 data of the WageIndicator survey. And that, I think, for researchers would make the data much more accessible. Kea, I think, also wants to come in on this.
Yeah, beside me, she's coming in by now.
Yeah, Janna, I agree with you that we certainly can improve our documentation and our archiving of the data. However, I'd like to invite you to take a look at the WageIndicator homepage, and then go to the right, the pillar at the right side, and go to the button Research Lab. And there you will find all our databases listed in a, you can see them. You can see in what format they are, how frequently they are updated, what kind of APIs they use. So that is really something that we should maintain, and that is the access to our database. And here also it says that if the data is freely available, where it has the digital object identifiers. So that is basically, if we could, maintain this one and improve these pages, and Niels is basically the boss of the pages, that would be really great. So this is our way forward in archiving the whole databases.
Thank you very much, Kea.
I shared it now, so you can
Yeah, we have seen it.
see it.
Yes, we all took a look at it just now.
Okay. I'm here again.
Oh.
Sorry.
It is true, Janna, Rupa, we lose some people, although not too many at the moment, because we're still 28. But if we all decide that this was was a nice second part of the Wage Indicator conference. Then we close at this moment.
Pauline, I would suggest that just to close this part of our section, that we just ask everybody, since we're talking about the future, to in the chat just add one thing that you wish to all your colleagues in the future. So what do you wish for everyone here? Good health, a great team, a long time together at the Wage Indicator. Just type some nice stuff into the chat so that we finish this on a high note, and then we get back to Pauline now. Thank you very much.
More travel, Danny. You haven't been traveling for years, isn't it?
We missed that a bit.
Yes, and then we have lots of ladies' nights. That's what I hear. And
So Janna, this time you can join virtually for the ladies' night.
Very good.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, Pauline, what about tonight's ladies' night?
Feel invited. We can open the Zoom box again. If not the Zoom box, then, well, as you know, the house in Bussum is always open. By the way, tomorrow it's again a wage indicator house with ongoing discussions on publication of living wages. So everybody is welcome, but I realize that when you are, wherever you are in the world, whether it's Russia or Germany or Vietnam or India or Uganda, because there are two people from Uganda as well, from Burundi, Liberat. So then it's impossible to be together. So let's have this type of Zoom meetings because this is a good second option than for ladies' night. But there are quite some men, and I would say we keep them in the team, isn't it? So we are happy with them. We are happy with all the contributions. So I would like to close here. Next year, of course, Wage Indicator conferences and the years after. I hope it will be in the same cool spirit as it has been all the time and this time. So thanks a million. Thanks, Rob. Thanks, Martin. Martin has had to do something else. Thanks, Neve, Fasuda, Sriya, Fiona, and the nice podcast team, Rupa and Janna. We invent something like this and can keep on talking now and then on Friday afternoon or Friday night like this way. Thanks a lot. It's an honor.